Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. I'm Harper LaBelle. Along with me today is Vincent Turner, our co-host, and he's a founder of the 100 Yards of Football moniker. And our producer today is Logan Lander. So thank you, Logan, for putting all this together. Vincent, today we get to talk about another one of our draft prospects, and in our draft prospects profile show, I think people will recognize Kenneth Grant, big number 78 for the University of Michigan. He's a defensive tackle, and how can you miss him? At 6'3", 325, 35, maybe even 40 pounds. We'll see. But what a presence. Last year during the national championship run, we would call his name out because he was making a big play. He was stopping a run. He was forcing a run to go to the outside of him instead of going right up the middle. This year, not as much publicity, but I think everybody recognizes that this is a guy at the next level in the National Football League. He will be able to fit in from day one because he's got the size, he's got the strength, he's got the speed. The only question on this young man right now is, does he have the stamina? What kind of shape can he get in so that he can play a full 4 downs, 4, 8, 12, 16 plays in a row? Is that a possibility for him?
When you look at it, I think when you get to the right team, it's going to be all about conditioning. But there's a saying that somebody say all the time: Hawk, does he look like a football player? Does he look like a guy that's an end of a first round D tackle? In my opinion, it's no question about it. I love the young man. Last week, we talked about his partner, Mason Graham, how great a football player he was at the D tackle position. Well, you know what, this young man right here, when the draft is held in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and his family is up there with him on the stage, his name is going to be heard early on as a top 10 selection. That's how good Mr. Kenneth Grant is. And playing at a prestigious school like Michigan with Tom Harmon, he's one of the best defensive players that's going to ever come through this doors of the University of Michigan. I love the young man at the D tackle position. Back to you, Hawk.
I think Mr. and Mrs. Grant, Mama Grant, is going to be clapping when his name is called, and she's going to go, whoo, now I don't have to feed him and all his buddies that come over anymore. They'd go through everything in the refrigerator.
Yes, sir.
But one thing
yes,
that
sir.
he didn't have to teach him, it's just something that he has, is strength, size, his ability to collapse the pocket when he's rushing the passer. It goes with the territory. That's what he can do. He's got a great first step. He's very athletic for his size. He's a multi-gap run stopper, which means that he can cover the gap in between the center and the guard, or if you move him to the outside between the guard and the tackle. And who knows, if he drops 15, 20 pounds, which depending on what team drafts him, they may ask him to do that and have him be a guy that can go from one end of the defensive line or against the offensive line to the other. His versatility will be dependent on his ability to be able to stay on the field. He plays a little bit high sometimes, Vincent, something because you get a little tired, right? You don't bend your knees as much. You don't have that same angle. But just look at this guy. When you see him on film, when you look at the pictures of him and realize that, he's a behemoth right now. He's just a big dude that can play and will help you in your run game. Every team needs to have a guy that can stop the run, especially on fourth down, and he'd be one of those guys to actually help take that to the next level for whatever team that he joins. Not exactly certain what team he's going to play for, but his ability to be able to step right in, it speaks for itself. Let me give you a couple of numbers right now. 6'3", 335 pounds, and we're rounding that down. You can see number 78 is the number that he's had now while he's been at the University of Michigan. 32 tackles this year, 3 sacks. He had 5 passes deflected. He had 2 fumble recoveries, so he's around the ball a lot. And Maryville, Indiana is where he made his home, where he grew up, where Mrs. Grant raised him. But certainly those are good numbers for an interior defensive lineman, especially playing at the Big Ten level. He's around the football. He knows where to go, and he can get there. Yeah, he's not going to beat you to the sideline. He doesn't have to. If you run in between the tackles, you're going to have to mess with him in one way, shape, or form.
You brought up his hometown. Know the water's got to be great there because Greg Popovich is from the same area he's from. We all know who he is, San Antonio Spurs. I don't have to say no more. But Hawk, when you look at him, I like what you said. He's a good, what was you say? He's a good gap tackler in between the gaps, right? Hop, you played in the league when a young man from Kansas by the name of Gilbert Brown was playing with the Packers. You think about Gabriel Rivera, who I saw playing college with Texas Tech that really didn't get a chance after his first year with the Steelers. Steve Ettman, that great big tackle that played in Washington. And then you think about Gary Big Hands Johnson, who's with the San Diego Chargers, now the LA Chargers. He's got that same type of skill set. But the one thing I like about him, he's productive. He's always around the ball. Ohio State, who's playing the national championship game, Mr. Grant had 4 tackles in that game. Nebraska, 3 tackles and 1 sack. This is a guy, as I'm saying, as Mr. Harper LaBelle said, to the Grant family, just hold on. That money going to be good. Back to you, Hop.
Yeah, one of the things, right, working on a second move, whatever. You mentioned a couple of different guys. I pay attention to the Edelman and Gronkowski podcasts that they have. I find them very amusing and also informative. And they talked once about Will Wolfork. And they all were surprised at how good an athlete Will was, despite his waist. Strong as anybody in the weight room, but he could also move. And even though he only played maybe 10 or 12 snaps a game, he would dominate. And what I mean by that, it would take 2 people to move him from his spot. And what does that do when you got a double team one guy? It means another guy, usually interior linebacker, is running free. And if Kenneth Grant has the same ability to do that here with whatever team that he goes to and free up a guy to make a play at the line of scrimmage or at a tackle for loss, it's worth its weight in gold, at least from a defensive coordinator standpoint. You know, from the beginning to the end that you can stop the middle. You won't do it every single play, but if you do it 9 out of 10 times, you've got the type of defense that you need, at least the roots for that. Again, playing a little bit high is one of the criticisms against him, which means that a guy can get underneath him and move him a little bit. His ability to anchor, everyone can improve on that. That's probably another thing. And then a stamina issue, Vincent. That's the only other thing that I can think of that, at 330 pounds, he may not be able to go 50 or 60 plays, especially on a hot, let's say, New Orleans day. If you're inside in New Orleans, but if you're in Phoenix or if you're in an open air stadium like Tampa or Miami, that might come into play. So we'll see whether or not that's the type of player that they want him to be at 330, 340, or they want to move him down to about 310, 315. But either way, again, Mr. and Mrs. Grant, congratulations, your baby boy. It could be a Pro Bowler. That's what some people are expecting. But a first-round tag next to him is certainly something that is inevitable if he has a great combine.
My final words about Kenneth Grant. If you're looking for a defensive tackle that can collapse the pocket, he's your man. Hey, Atlanta Falcons, Grady Jarrett is getting old. I don't know if y'all going to re-sign him. I think he'll fit in perfectly based on the fact y'all going to interview his former defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, there are some people that say, are you going to build my defense from the front back, meaning that your defensive line, then the linebackers, then the safety? And others would say you build from the back front. You have your safeties, your quarterbacks. You establish that as the strongest part of your defense. Then you work your way forward to the linebackers and then the defensive line. But long in tooth, Grady Jarrett and Ominyata, there's some other guys that are a part of that. That need to sign contracts. So who knows if Atlanta might be reaching for a guy like Kenneth Grant when they go to hand that name in on draft day there in Green Bay. But good luck to him and his future. It looks certainly bright. And for Mr. and Mrs. Grant, you only got to feed him for another couple of months. Your baby boy is going to be bringing it home. All right, Vincent, that's all for this particular episode of the Draft Prospects Profile. I want to say thank you to you. Thank you to Logan Landers as well, who is our producer and engineer. Folks, this is another episode of 100 Yards of Football. We thank you for tuning in. Have a fantastic day.